Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Pokémon Film Perspectives. And today we're going to be discussing the 8th animated film to be released as part of the Pokémon franchise, Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And I got my Mew plush back, so he'll be joining us for this little vlog. But yeah, my history with this movie. Ads, once again. Yeah, like I said, this is another film that I basically was first introduced to through just ads of the DVD. However, I was able to see this movie as it was a Pokemon movie, so it naturally premiered on Cartoon Network, although I don't think I saw the initial premiere. I think I just saw it when it was being played again. But I did enjoy it. Yeah, when I was able to actually see the movie on Cartoon Network, I found myself really enjoying it a lot. To the point where I wanted to have the film for myself. I even recorded it off TV at one point. I loved it that much. So, naturally, this is kind of a film that stuck with me for a while. And hell, when I began actively collecting Pokemon DVDs, this is one of the few films that I was looking forward to getting the most. With that said, does it still hold up? Just gonna say right now, it very much does hold up. But why does it hold up? Well, let's take a look at it and find out. And yes, Mew's gonna be here. And just before I get into the plot summary, I'm using my phone as a light. And the last time I used my phone as a light for this tablet, the tablet picked up the vibrations the phone makes whenever it gets an alert. So if you hear an occasional bzzz at some point during this video, it's because of my phone, so apologies in advance. Anyway, with that out of the way, plot summary. And as you do, this film of course has a prologue. Only this prologue takes place thousands of years in the past, long before Pokeballs existed according to the narrator. In this case, this prologue occurs at a random kingdom. I'm gonna call it the Kingdom of Cameron. I'm only calling it that because that's what the castle is called. And unfortunately, this kingdom is caught in the middle of a war. And I don't mean that in the sense of it's taking part in a battle, no. There is a war going on between these two competing armies. One decked out in red armor, one decked out in green armor. Both armies are made up of human and Pokemon alike, and they're basically getting ready to come to blows with each other, with the Kingdom of Cameron caught smack dab in the middle. And, well, how the Kingdom of Cameron knows this is because, well, they have a scout looking out for this stuff. Specifically, our titular hero for this movie, Lucario, who is running around keeping an eye on things, and once he sees the armies getting ready to clash, he reports back his findings, as Lucario is a Pokemon that has mastered the power of Aura, which I'm pretty sure if you watching this, you know what the hell an aura is, but basically, aura is basically the metaphysical life force that all the living things radiate, and Lucario has the power to control that. And basically, he's able to use his power of aura to communicate with his master via these crystals that are scattered around the kingdom. As there's one back at the Cameron Castle, there's one where Lucario is, and thus he's able to project his thoughts directly through it, which in turn allows him to communicate with his master, which in this case, is a knight by the name of Sir Aaron, who is directly in service to the Queen of Cameron Castle. And yeah, Lucario lets him know what's going on, and yeah, it's clear that once the battle hits the kingdom, there will be no survivors. So Sir Aaron tells the Queen that maybe they should evacuate. But the Queen is not taking no for an answer. If her kingdom's going down, she's going down with the ship. And as such, Sir Aaron himself basically calls his own a Pokemon of his own, a Pidgeot, and he just rides it and flies away. In the meantime, Lucario himself kind of gets caught up in the middle of the conflict as a group of Houndoom end up basically ambushing him where he is, and he ends up doing battle with them. And while he ends up becoming the victor of the battle, well, in the midst of the battle, he gets some dust thrown in his eyes, and so he's temporarily blinded. With the only way he's able to see, thankfully, with his power of aura. However, after he escapes the Houndoom, that's when he runs into Sir Aaron, who briefly stops to see Lucario. And while Lucario is wondering why the hell Sir Aaron is here, why isn't he back at the castle, Sir Aaron just tells Lucario he's basically abandoned ship. He's leaving the kingdom and he's not coming back. And of course, Lucario is a little confused by this, since Sir Aaron's supposed to be a knight. Why would he abandon his post? But Sir Aaron basically just tells Lucario to forget about him, and just leave. And so Sir Aaron tries to leave, but Lucario ain't taking no for an answer because he wants to know why his master is doing something so out of character. However, in response to this, Sir Aaron takes his staff, which, yeah, he has a staff with a little crystal on the top, and he chucks it at Lucario. And the instant he gets close, the crystal on the staff lights up, and it basically turns into a makeshift Pokeball, as it basically just sucks Lucario inside it, and, well, Lucario is just left helpless as he sees Sir Aaron get back on his Pidgeot and fly away. And as a result, Lucario's consciousness fades away with the last words he thinks before he just kind of blacks out, being, why? But yeah, Lucario's warning comes to pass as the two armies end up clashing and a battle does begin, but something happens. You see, at the far side of the kingdom is something that looks like a tree. It's not really a tree, it's just a giant stone structure that looks like a tree. But because it looks like a tree, it has the nickname of the Tree of Beginnings, and something happens in the Tree of Beginnings. Something that involves a cute, tiny little Pokemon that seems to have the power to shapeshift, and whatever this thing is, it causes a wave of energy to spread out from the tree all across the kingdom. And once both armies are encompassed by this energy, the fighting stops. And, well, from here the film cuts ahead to the hundreds of years later in the present day, and it turns out that the story of this war has basically become a local legend, as we see a mother telling the story to her child through a storybook, and it turns out that, according to the legend, whatever Sir Aaron did when he abandoned ship involved the Tree of Beginnings, and whatever he did at the Tree of Beginnings just ended the war, released that energy, and all the hatred and malice that both armies felt for each other turned into peace and understanding, and thus, peace was restored, kingdom saved, and Sir Aaron was regarded as a hero. So, yeah, clearly something happened at the tree, but nobody knows what. Well, we will soon get our answers, but before we get to that, we have to check in on our main characters, because yes, Ash and Co. are here as well. Basically, what's going on is that Cameron Castle every year has a festival that they hold to celebrate Sir Aaron as a hero, and the main event of that festival is a Pokemon competition, and since Ash is our local Pokemon trainer, you bet your ass he wants to take part in that, and so that's why he and the rest of his friends are there. Although upon arriving at Cameron Castle, they realize they stick out a little because everyone's in period costume. So of course Ash and Co. want to dress up like they're from the old times, I suppose you can say, and thus they go to Cameron Castle because that's where you can pick up costumes. And as such they go in, and all of them get dressed, and all of them go to the dressing room, and all of them get dressed in their nice old-timey getup. They even put Pikachu in a jester outfit, which I find to be a bit embarrassing, but it is a little adorable. However, before Pikachu gets decked in this outfit, and while everyone's choosing what they'll wear, Pikachu happens across a Pichu that beckons him to come to where it's hiding under a curtain. When Pikachu goes to see what this is, a light emerges from beneath the curtain, and in place of the Pichu is a Trico, which climbs out the window of the room, much to Pikachu's confusion. Regardless, though, Ash and Co. all get decked out, with Ash even in an outfit very similar to Sir Aaron's, and thus Ash goes to the Pokemon competition while his friends watch in the stands, and it also leads to the opening credits for this movie. And after two movies where we don't have a theme song in the opening credits, this one does have one, as the theme song is a remix of the Pokemon Advanced Battle theme. And yes, it is awesome. It's basically just a montage as we see Ash basically rising through the ranks of the competition and just dominating as he does. Although we see that there is someone else in the competition that's dominating, somebody in a knight outfit who's clearly winning with their Pokemon Weavile. But eventually Ash and this unknown opponent end up facing in the final battle, and well, Ash being Ash, he comes out victorious, and he's labeled the champion of the competition. And not only that, as the winner, he's also labeled this year's Guardian of Aura. And so as a result of this, he's bequeathed Sir Aaron's staff in a ceremony that takes place at the castle. And so, yeah, Ash gets that sort of thing. Also, he learns that his opponent was a woman, specifically a woman named Kid. I have absolutely no idea who would name their child Kid, but whatever. It's like me naming my dog Canine. I don't know, it just seems weird. Either way, she's not a She's not a sore loser, and upon losing her battle, she does actually thank Ash for such an invigorating battle, and, well, Brock being Brock, he goes feral upon seeing her and maxes to drag Brock away, but what can you do? Regardless, like I said, Ash bequeaths staff, major celebration later that night, as Ash and his friends are all invited to this big gala, where all the guests and competitors are all just in costume and just kind of dancing, enjoying food and so forth, while Ash, unfortunately, kind of has to sit on the sidelines, as, since he's the guardian of Aura, he's now just basically a bystander to everything. At one point, he even tries to take part in the festivities, but he's basically sat right back down in the chair and told he has to be on standby and just do nothing. Although that doesn't mean he can't let his Pokemon have fun, because he immediately lets them out of their Pokeballs, and May and Brock also follow suit as they release their Pokemon, or at least May does. I think just May. Yeah, Brock does not do that. In fact, he's actually too occupied with being around Kid that release his Pokemon. The thing is, though, ever since Ash and Pikachu won the competition, there has been one Pokemon that's been hanging around Pikachu, an Aipom, who just seems to be all friendly and happy with Pikachu, and the instant Ash and May let their Pokemon out, Aipom leads Pikachu and co. upstairs to a little attic just above the ballroom, and upon going there, they just play, as the attic is just full of all these toys and so forth that the Pokemon just have fun with. And on top of that, we see that Aipom is not an Aipom, as like with the Trico before it, we see it transform into Pikachu. And yes, I'll just say it right now, they are the same Pokemon. If you're watching the movie, it's friggin' obvious it's the same Pokemon, especially since Aipom was not the next Pokemon that Trico turned into. He turned into a Mime Jr. first, then Aipom, so what can you do? But anyway, I'm getting off topic. As this is going on, Ash is still on standby, but the thing is, ever since he got Sir Aaron's staff, he's been hearing a voice from it that's been basically saying, "Why did you abandon the kingdom?" Much to his own confusion. But again, no one really has a lot of time to think about it, because as the Pokemon are being led away, Kid notices and basically feigns a fainting spell so that Brock will leave her to go get her a drink. However, once Brock is out of sight, Kid leaves the party early and basically goes into a side room, and she's not alone, for you see, Team Rocket is on the scene. Yeah, as you do, they followed Ash and Co to this competition, and their plan was basically just to invade the competition and basically steal as many Pokemon as they could. But Jessie, being Jessie, is now more in love with the minutiae of this whole thing, and is now more concerned with being a part of this giant gala than, stealing Pokemon. With that said, while she may have roped James into being a part of the gala, Meowth has found a way to hide himself, and so he's basically hiding under a table just gorging himself on food, but he does take notice when Aipom ends up leading all the Pokemon away, and so he tries following, though when he does try following up to the attic, he gets a door slammed in his face and in turn knocks him into a fireplace. But, well, that's the room where Kid wound up going into, and so he overhears Kid talking to someone, as we see her put on a headset, and we see her talking to someone named Banks. And basically through their dialogue, we learn that Kit isn't just in Cameron Castle for seeing the sights and taking part in the competition. She's here for a specific goal, namely, she's here looking for this little Cuttlebug. She says that she wants to hunt down Mew. For what reason, we don't know yet. But when she makes this reason clear, she basically just discards her formal dress, as we see that she's wearing kind of a skin-tight outfit underneath that's clearly more for adventuring, so to speak. As such, she ends up leaping out of the window, and Meowth, being curious about what the hell Kid's doing here, decides to follow after. Although, when she ends up climbing up to the roof of the castle, Meowth follows, he ends up losing his footing and accidentally falls right into the attic where Pikachu and the other Pokemon are playing around. In the meantime, Kid ends up moving herself to another rooftop through her own technology with a grappling hook, and, well, she ends up using a binoculars to peek in on the room where all the Pokemon are, and sure enough, one of these Pokemon ends up shape-shifting, and, well, the shapeshifter it's Mew. It's friggin' Mew. And so, as such, Kid has her target in sight, but she doesn't want to go in for the kill, so to speak. In this case, she ends up calling out her Weaviles, yes, she has 2 of them, and basically gives them a little device, basically a tracker. And basically, all what she wants them to do is that she wants them to get to Mew and tag it. And so the Weavile do exactly what she says, but they do it in the most unsubtle way possible, as they basically just charge into the attic room and just tackle Mew. Yeah, even Kid thinks that what they're doing is overkill. Regardless, they keep trying to get Mew, but, well, since the Pokemon really don't know what these guys are here for, all they know is that two Weavile just came right the hell out of nowhere and are attacking Mew, so Pikachu goes on the offensive and hits the Weaviles with Thunder Shock. In the meantime, however, the Weaviles themselves go on the offensive, and they end up using some of their freezing powers to basically just trying to freeze all the Pokemon in the room, say Pikachu, Meowth, and Mew. Also, this battle now has an unexpected bystander, as Max downstairs was looking for the Pokemon, and he happened to catch one of May's Pokemon, a Munchlax, taking food up to the attic, so he followed after. And, well, since when most of the Pokemon got frozen over, the door got slightly frozen over too, and so Max is kind of kept out of the room. Though he is able to open the door up enough so that he's able to peek inside and see what's going on. Regardless, the Weavile continue their assault, and Mew tries throwing them off by shapeshifting into Meowth and, just swapping them around so they can't tell which is which, and before you can say, well, obviously they can tell, one Meowth can speak and one can't. Well, keep in mind that from the Pokemon's perspective, they can understand Meowth, but that doesn't mean that they can discern which one is the talker. Regardless, they decide to just take them both, and Pikachu is able to stop their freezing attack by using a Thunder Shock, but the resulting blowback ends up knocking Pikachu out. And as such, before the Weavile can tag Mew again, well, Mew pulls out another move and just teleports himself, Meowth, and Pikachu right out of the room, much to even kids' surprise. And where does Mew teleport them to? Why a spire, of course. Not even kidding. Mew teleports them right to the roof of one of the castle spires, and naturally, it's kind of hard for Meow to hold on for dear life as he's the one carrying Pikachu, and, well, try holding onto a curved spire with just one of your hands while the other is preoccupied. You're gonna fall. Thankfully, Mew kind of has Meowth and Pikachu's backs as he shapeshifts into a Pidgeot and catches them before they land on the ground, but, well, he doesn't take them back to the castle. Rather, Mew instead takes them far away from the castle, straight to the Tree of Beginnings. So, yeah, that's not good, and unfortunately everyone's a little too late to stop it, with even Kid chastising the Weavile for how hostile they were acting, and even making a joke about how she needs to send them to obedience school. In the meantime, back at the gala, everything seems to be winding down, and before everything kind of finishes off, Ash has to make the call to launch the fireworks, and in order to do that, he has to assume a pose similar to one that Sir Aaron is making in a mural. And so, Ash does it, holding the staff aloft, and, well, fireworks begin blowing up, but as soon as Ash holds up the staff, it seems to be reacting, seems to actually be freaking out, much to everyone's surprise. And when the Queen's, I guess, maid asks why the hell what's going on with this staff, Ash says he doesn't know, but the staff finally reacts as it unleashes a bit of energy that forms into Lucario. And yeah, it's clear that Lucario is still suffering from his temporary blindness as his eyes are still closed. But Lucario, upon waking up, Lucario looks around the gala and looks on Ash. But the thing is, when he looks at Ash, he mistakes him for Sir Aaron. Not because he's dressed like Sir Aaron, as we learn later, but it turns out that for whatever reason, Ash's aura is the exact same as Sir Aaron's, as from Lucario's perspective, we do see the aura of everyone in the gala, and they all look normal like regular people, yet Ash's seems to just be flaring up, like it's just like overflowing with energy. Regardless, though, because his aura looks exactly like Sir Aaron's, Lucario mistakes Ash for Sir Aaron and immediately goes to him and demands to know why the hell he abandoned the kingdom. And while Ash is confused about this, Lucario keeps demanding answers, which results in Ash saying, "What are you talking about?" And upon hearing that the voice coming out of Sir Aaron's mouth is that of a 10-year-old, Lucario finally opens his eyes and sees that, yeah, the person he's talking to is not his master. And when he sees that he's in a gala, naturally, Lucario begins freaking out a little and leaves the area. And upon stepping outside and seeing the fireworks, he's even more confused, because from his perspective, wasn't there a war going on? So, yeah, kind of to cut to the chase here, from Lucario's perspective, no time has passed. For whatever reason, when he was imprisoned in the staff, he basically went into a hibernative state. His consciousness basically just zoned out, so to speak. And so from his perspective, it may have been just like I don't know, either a few days or maybe even a few minutes since Sir Aaron trapped him in the staff. And as a result, now that he's waking up in the present day, he has absolutely no idea that any time has passed. And you can tell that the future shock is beginning to have an effect on him, because as he wanders around the castle, he begins having flashbacks to when he and Sir Aaron used to live here, as Sir Aaron, being his master, is the one that took him under his wing and taught him about aura. Yeah, I don't really understand that either, but hey, it's a movie. What can you? I'll let it slide. And even then, the film's maybe a little out of continuity. I'll get back to that later. Point is, though, in his flashbacks, he remembers Sir Aaron leading Lucario to an area in the castle that was supposed to be Lucario's room, and yet when Lucario goes back to that room, there is nothing there that looks like it's been lived in for a while. In fact, it's been converted basically into a makeshift museum, as there are displays on there showcasing like royal jewelry, royal furnishings, basically all these things that look like they're priceless and are kept behind glass. And but ultimately, as Lucario is examining this, he does get company as Ash and Co arrive, as well as the Queen and her maid. And while at first Lucario thinks that the Queen is the Queen from his time, all it takes is turning on a light switch for him to get confirmation it isn't, with the Queen confirming that the Queen that he knew is one of her ancestors. And as such, she lets Lucario know that he's been asleep for hundreds of years, and let's just say Lucario doesn't fully take this knowledge well, as he basically just recoils and basically has to lean on one of the glass cases to keep himself from falling over, as he looks like he has a little mini panic attack, which, don't blame him. That's a very realistic reaction to being told, oh yeah, by the way, you've been asleep for hundreds of years. Have fun with that. But regardless, when Lucario does calm down, he is able to tell the full story of what happened hundreds of years ago to the Queen, about the armies, about what was happening, and how Sir Aaron basically just abandoned the kingdom. Which confuses everyone, because again, the legend says that Sir Aaron was a hero, and yet from Lucario's perspective, Sir Aaron abandoned ship. So it's really kind of odd that if Sir Aaron was a coward, why is he regarded as a hero? But regardless of what's truth and what's fiction, the Queen still welcomes Lucario with open arms, saying that even after all these years, this castle is still his home, so he can stay here for as long as he wants, which Lucario is thankful for. However, before anyone can talk about this further, Max and Kid arrive on the scene and basically let everybody know that Mew has flown the coop with Pikachu and Meowth. However, when the Queen and her maid hear about Mew, they're not really that surprised. You see, Mew has actually been a local fixture in Cameron Castle for some time, and he's basically just a local nuisance. Not really much of a threat. He just kind of pops in, messes around with people, and typically what he does is that he just steals toys and then just flies the coop, and whatever he takes is never seen again. Yeah, when it comes to toys, that sounds pretty harmless. Now he's taken Pokémon, specifically Pikachu and Meowth. So, yeah, once Ash hears that his best friend has kind of been Pokénapped, he naturally wants to go save him. Not just him. Team Rocket was also on the scene, just kind of in the background, hiding in the rafters, so to speak. And upon overhearing that Meowth has been kidnapped, they naturally want to save their little buddy too. As such, Ash asks the Queen where Mew lives, and the Queen directs Ash to the Tree of Beginnings, because that's where Mew is from. However, if Ash truly does want to go to the Tree of Beginnings to try and find Mew, then he'll need some help. After all, as we saw, Mew here can apparently shapeshift. I didn't think he could do that before, since he never displayed that ability in the first movie, but whatever. But the point is, if they really want to find Mew, there's a chance that Mew could shapeshift into another Pokemon and they wouldn't recognize him. And as such, the Queen asks that Lucario accompany Ash and his friends on their journey, since, well, Lucario has the power to see the aura of all living things, so even if Mew transformed into another Pokemon, he'd be able to recognize it no problem. And while Lucario is a little tense after what happened to him, he is still loyal to the Queen, and thus he does accept this mission. Although, again, it's clear that there is a little bit of apprehension, as prior to everyone going off and trying to find Mew, well, Ash and Lucario have a moment, as they do have a moment where they briefly do talk, and when Ash thanks Lucario for helping them on their journey, Lucario asks Ash, so are you Pikachu's master? And Ash just kind of scoffs it up, because in his eyes, he and Pikachu are best friends, and he'd do anything to save him. And when Ash asks Lucario if he would do the same thing for his friends, Lucario's response is, I don't have any friends. and I don't want any. So, yeah, there's clearly some tension. But either way, everybody gets geared up to go, and they're not the only ones. Because Kid also volunteers her services, and when she does, Brock finally recognizes who she truly is. Her real name is Kid Summers, and basically, according to Brock, she's a superwoman, or a super-duper woman. Basically, she has broken every record, done everything, climbed the highest heights, gone the lowest lows, basically done everything in the world over, and basically holds the world record for the most world records. She's basically Lara Croft on steroids. Well, okay, figurative steroids. Point is, she's kind of a big deal, and Kid volunteers her, and part of the reason why Kid volunteers her services here is because, well, she's interested in the Tree of Life. It's actually why she was hunting down Mew. Her next big quest right now is to discover the secrets of the Tree of Beginnings. Sorry, I said Tree of Life, now Tree of Beginnings. I'm getting their names mixed up. Point is, she wants to find the secrets of the Tree of Beginnings. She knows Mew is involved somehow, and since tagging Mew earlier failed, she wants to accompany Ash and Co to the tree so she can get answers from the source. So basically, she comes along with them, and they even take her dune buggy as their mode of transportation. And as such, everybody gets going with Kid, Ash, May, Max, and Brock all huddled in the Humvee, while Lucario runs ahead of them using his power of aura to basically direct them and to figure out where they can go. With Team Rocket stowing away in the trunk because again, they want to save Meowth. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that dog thing. But basically, the group does take a couple breaks, first to eat lunch, and the second time it's because they encounter a field of geysers, and they can't proceed any further until the geysers calm down, allowing everyone to take a dip in a nearby hot spring. Although being near the hot spring does stir a few memories in Lucario's brain, including one where he and Sir Aaron were at the same hot spring, and Sir Aaron basically goaded Lucario into soaking his feet with him so he could loosen up. Although when Ash and Co invite Lucario to come swim with them in the hot spring, he's not exactly open to it. However, as everyone's taking a dip, May notices on a nearby cliffside a very peculiar flower, and so Ash, being Ash, decides to climb the cliff to see what the flower is. Although when he goes to reach it, he ends up losing his footing and basically falls off, taking the flower with him. May is a little upset by this because she just wanted to see the flower, not for Ash to pick it. And as such, they decide they're going to replant the flower later. Although, once everyone gets out of the hot spring and redresses themselves, as everybody gets ready to plant the flower, the instant Ash picks it up, the flower seems to react as it suddenly opens up and unleashes a light that completely covers the area, and everybody sees an instant replay of Ash falling off the cliff into the hot spring, which confuses everyone until Kid arrives and reveals what this thing is. It's something called a time flower that, through the power of aura, is supposed to have the ability to, well, show anyone a vision of the past. And the whole reason why it reacted now is because, well, Ash is the same aura as Sir Aaron, and according to legend, he used to use these things for the express purpose of looking into the past. And Sir Aaron even showed this ability to Lucario at one point. So, yeah, that's a thing, I guess. In the meantime, though, we cut to actually later that evening as everyone's still kind of camped out. And Ash gives a bit of exposition about his friendship with Pikachu, relating how when they first met up, Pikachu probably couldn't stand Ash. Which, yeah, if you watch the anime, you know this story. But basically, Ash relays the tale about how he and Pikachu finally truly bonded when they were being attacked by a flock of Spearow, and Ash basically used himself as a human shield to try and protect Pikachu. And Pikachu, in turn, basically protected Ash by unleashing a Thunderbolt so great that it took out the entire flock, and from that moment on, basically, Ash and Pikachu realized they could rely and trust one another. However, this story does cause another flashback for Lucario, as he remembers a time when Sir Aaron was training him how to use the power of aura, and how at the time Lucario felt pride and trust in Sir Aaron, and how he was able to teach him about these abilities. And upon his mind returning back to the present day, Lucario pretty much tells Ash that his story is bullshit, as he believes that all humans are alike and they can't be trusted, and that if given the opportunity, Ash would abandon Pikachu without a second thought. Something that pisses Ash right the hell off, to the point where he starts throwing insults at Lucario, claiming that maybe he's lying about Sir Aaron, that maybe Lucario abandoned the kingdom and Sir Aaron was the true hero. And in response to that, Lucario further throws shade at Ash by saying, well, maybe Pikachu left you on purpose. You ever think about that? And that basically results in Ash bringing out his tried and true headbutt as he fucking tackles Lucario right off of the hill, right into the hot spring. And yeah, it's actually a rather emotionally charged scene as both Ash and Lucario are basically just trying to throttle each other as we see them keep sporadically popping out of the hot spring, neither of them letting up until the battle ends with Lucario pretty much picking up Ash and throwing him to the other side of the hot spring. And the only reason Ash doesn't retaliate is because May comes in and holds Ash back, and as such, Lucario basically jumps out of the hot spring and then just continues on his way like nothing happened, while Ash himself kind of dries himself off, and while May calls Ash out for what he said, Ash basically defends himself by saying that Lucario started it, but he acknowledges that maybe he shouldn't have said those things. In the meantime, we cut to the next day as once again everyone's piled into Kit's van as Lucario's leading the way, but they once more take another pit stop, mainly because they've come across the area where Lucario was sealed in the staff. And upon getting there, Lucario kind of suffers from a bit of PTSD because, well, he kind of just wants to know why. He wants to know why Sir Aaron did what he did. Why did he imprison him in the staff and all that? Well, we don't really get answers per se, but Lucario does have his little breakdown near a time flower, and thus the time flower reacts to his aura, and it basically unleashes another time bubble, so to speak, that projects a vision of the past for everyone to see. And sure enough, the moment they see is the moment when Lucario was trapped in Sir Aaron's staff, thus confirming that, yeah, Sir Aaron was the one that trapped Lucario. Not only that, the group sees him flying away on his Pidgeot, and then subsequently they're right there in the midst of things when both armies clash. And everybody basically freaks out about this, and the only reason that they don't all have breakdowns themselves is because they have to remember these are just visions of the past, they're not real. But Lucario feels like he's directly in the thick of it, as he basically just has a full-on meltdown, as he just begins throwing aura spears everywhere, and the only reason he stops is because Ash reminds him that none of this is real. But ultimately, the vision does stop as it retracts into the flower, and Lucario basically just goes away so he can basically calm down. But yeah, seeing that vision does seem to confirm a bit of his story. That Sir Aaron was the one that trapped him in the staff, and it was Sir Aaron that seemingly abandoned the kingdom, not the other way around. So yeah, clearly there are still facts that don't mesh up. But regardless of what the true version of the story is, Ash realizes that Lucario was not lying, and everything he said to him was unwarranted in the worst way possible. And as such, as Lucario is basically trying to recover, Ash goes to him and basically just tells him he's sorry for the things he said. He shouldn't have said them, they were wrong and cruel, and he basically just asked for forgiveness, even basically doing his best to hold back tears because he begins to understand why Lucario is acting the way he is. And once Lucario sees Ash having this reaction, well, he doesn't say I'm sorry himself, but he does finally have a moment where he connects with Ash, as he has Ash promise to never abandon Pikachu, something that Ash does promise to do. However, this little emotional moment gets put on hold as Lucario senses something nearby, and when he goes to check on it, well, he reacts immediately as he pushes Ash out of the way of an attack, and we see the one attacking him is another Pokemon, specifically a Regirock, who immediately starts opening fire on the group, and even picks up Kit's van and throws it aside. As such, Lucario leads Ash and Co. away as they leads him into what looks like into a rock formation to try and lead them further to the Tree of Beginnings. And as they go inside, Lucario basically believes that what they saw with Regirock was basically just a warning. It was basically just Regirock telling everyone to get the hell out while they still could. And well, no, obviously nobody heeded that warning because, well, everyone's here because they want to save Pikachu. Well, except Kid, but she has a good heart and wants to try and help Pikachu as well, despite her own reasoning. So hey, what can I do? So hey, well, that's counter two. Speaking of Pikachu, let's talk about him for a second, because as we've been actually seeing all these moments with Ash and Co., we have been popping back in with Pikachu, as we see him, Meowth, and Mew as they're in the Tree of Beginnings, and thankfully Pikachu has recovered from the battle with with Kid's Weaviles. Hold on one second, dog barked. Sorry about that. But anyway, like I said, Pikachu has been recovering after the battle with the Weaviles, and he has woken up, and Mew is more than happy to have Pikachu there. Well, and it's clear that Mew has taken quite a liking to Pikachu, and basically just wants to have Pikachu as a playmate, as immediately Mew and Pikachu begin goofing around, running around with a tree, and even begin kind of exploring it, as well as Meowth just watches them having fun and tries leaning on what looks like a stump part of the tree, which in turn actually leads to, I guess, the tree's bloodstream? Nervous system? I don't really know how to describe it. But it's basically just this weird cavernous thing within the tree's veins that is just full of all these green bubbles. And Mew and Pikachu follow after and just ride on top of the bubbles because Mew thinks it's fun. Which in turn does bring the trio up further into the tree and does get them into a place where they can get a pretty damn good view of the landscape. And it's nice and everybody has fun. But even through the fun, we see that Pikachu is beginning to get a little homesick, as he wants to see Ash again. And while Mew is trying to distract Pikachu by showing off all the toys he has and trying to get Pikachu to play with them, it's clear that none of these toys are going to make Pikachu happy. All he wants is to get back to his friend. And we even have a moment in the movie where Pikachu is basically longing to see Ash again. And I have to say, this scene actually takes place immediately after Ash and Lucario had their fight, but before Lucario saw the vision of the past. As that night, Ash actually sensed, sorry, I'm just repeating myself. He sensed Pikachu missing him, and he in turn reciprocated. And Lucario did see that, which I think did help further ingratiate Ash to Lucario, because, well, it's a sign that his trust and friendship in Pikachu is genuine. And I'll get back to that when I'm done talking about the plot summary, but needless to say, I do like how Lucario's character is handled in this movie. Either way, back to the present day and what's going on currently in the movie. Basically, the entire group arrives in basically a giant valley alcove underneath the tree. And basically, Lucario tells Ash and Co. that if they just go up, they'll be in the Tree of Beginnings itself, and from there, they can find Pikachu. As such, Ash being Ash just basically goes without thinking, with Lucario hot on his heels. But in the meantime, the group tries following after, but Kid stays behind as she pulls out a belt of little robots that she calls survey bots, and it's just basically what these things do is right there on the tin. Their job is basically go out through the tree and scan the area, see what makes this place tick, and so on. As such, the survey bots go out, and Kid is able to contact Banks, and basically Banks lets her know that the survey bots are detecting that the Tree of Beginnings is basically just a living organism in and of itself. It has a working nervous system, its own ecostructure. Basically, in all intents and purposes, despite the Tree of Beginnings basically being a giant rock, in many other ways it's something more. It's almost like a fully biological being. Sorry, that's my father. But the thing is, even with all that, while that is a vast scientific discovery, the question is raised: how does Mew fit into all this? After all, Mew calls the Tree of Beginnings its home. So if the tree is alive, how does Mew fit into everything? Well, unfortunately, Kid doesn't get those answers right away, because you see, as her survey bots are going throughout the tree, they begin finding all those crystals that I mentioned earlier, the ones that Lucario used to contact Sir Aaron in the beginning of the movie, and they're just completely scattered throughout the tree. And the instant the survey bots find these crystals, they try burrowing into them to get samples of them, but the instant they do so, the crystals go from this kind of cyan and blue color to an orange color, and from them, these weird orange goopy things come out and basically just consume the survey bots, and they do that all across the tree, and it's a little concerning. I mean, even with things getting even more concerning, because Team Rocket, after Kid's after Kid's van basically got the heave ho, basically followed Ash and Co inside the tree. And well, at first they think that the landscape is completely beautiful. Immediately they get attacked by Reggie Rock and make a run for it, with them even getting further headed off by another Reggie, specifically Reggie Steel. And man, those two aren't the only Reggies here, because as Ash and Lucario make their way further up the tree, they run into a Reggie Ice that begins immediately attacking them with Ice Beam, blocking off their path and forcing Ash and Co to basically make a U-turn and find an alternate path. And ultimately, as they go through, they end up going further and further into the tree, and they end up running into Jesse and James. They're being attacked by Reggie Steel and Reggie Rock, and so both teams basically end up kind of working together as they evade the Reggies, even find themselves on a stone bridge, which they all have to cross, and the only reason the Reggies don't follow after them is because Lucario takes out the bridge. However, going back to Pikachu, when Ash got far enough along, he called out to Pikachu, and Pikachu heard him. As such, Pikachu is now just running out to try and find his best friend, with Mew and Meowth kind of following after, because well, Mew wants to know what the hell Pikachu is doing, and Meowth, actually I don't really know why Meowth is here. I guess to try and keep Pikachu safe because he wants to keep an eye on Mew. I don't really know. I guess he's just kind of along for the ride at this point. Either way, regardless, Pikachu does try finding Ash and Co. But as the group makes their way further into the caverns, Jesse and James get a little further ahead, and well, they kind of have an encounter with more of those goop creatures, with Jesse getting a sneak attack by one of them, and well, it fucking eats her. No ifs, ands, or buts. It eats her. It pulls her into its body, and then she's completely subsumed before the thing shrinks down and leaves nothing behind. And James is rather horrified, and while he tried to save Jesse by calling out his Cacnea and using a pin missile on the thing, it didn't even react. And before even he gets a chance to figure out what happened, he gets consumed by them, and before he gets fully consumed, he lets out his Chimecho. So yeah, everyone sees this. They managed to catch up with James as this happens, so they're wondering what the hell's going on. So as more... Again, sorry about that. As the group runs further in and tries to figure out what the hell is going on, but Kit does get a scan of these creatures, and Banks basically tells her that what these things are the rough equivalent of white blood cells. The tree is basically releasing them in response to what it considers an invasion or a virus. And, well, the tree sees these people did come into the tree unwillingly, not as volunteers, and, well, the only bit of organic life the tree seems to be okay with are plants and Pokémon. Human beings and robots don't seem to fit that agenda, and so it's basically taking them out because it believes they're an invading force. So, the tree is now going on the offensive. Are going on the offense. Unfortunately, things don't get much easier when the Reggies catch up with the group, and well, with these white blood cell antibodies on one side and the Reggies on the other, the group is kind of screwed. As such, to try and alleviate things, Ash volunteers to distract the Reggies while Kid, Brock, Max, and May make a run for it down another cavern, with Lucario volunteering to stay by Ash's side because it's clear he's beginning to trust Ash more and knows that Ash will do the same for him. As such, Ash and Lucario are able to distract the Reggies, with Ash calling out his Corvish and Sceptile, and they're able to get the Reggies Ash is successful as the Reggies do follow him and Lucario, but unfortunately the rest of the group isn't so lucky, as they make their way further into a cavern, and well, one by one, each of them gets taken out by the white blood cells. As Brock and Max both get taken, and May getting taken last, with her and Brock releasing their Pokemon just before they were consumed. And as such, Kid is the last one standing, and she basically has to use whatever prowess she has left just to avoid the white blood cells and meet back up with Ash. But speaking of, Ash and Lucario do make their way further in, and as Ash continues through the caverns, he ends up hearing Pikachu calling out for him and actually kind of goes off in a different direction, which confuses Lucario, but his search does lead him to what looks like this big cavern with all these crystals acting as like spires, and it's windy there, but Ash and Pikachu hear each other and basically make their way in, damn the consequences. And sure enough, they do end up fighting each other, and after they both have a bit of trouble with the wind, Ash and Pikachu do end up being reunited, though unfortunately this almost causes them to become I'm just gonna say street pizza. Though thankfully that's when Kid arrives and saves them and brings them back to the cavern where Lucario meets up with them. So again, it's nice. Ash is happy to see his best friend. Pikachu's happy to see his best friend, and Ash introduces Pikachu to Lucario, and Ash explains that it was because of Lucario they were even able to find Pikachu. So again, all's well that ends well, but there's still the matter of getting the hell out of here. This place still wants Ash and Kid dead, so they need to haul ass as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, as Ash and Kid make their way further into the tree, Kid has to kind of give Ash the grim reality that his friends are not alive right now. And and Ash has to kind of impart that same knowledge onto Meowth, because Meowth ends up catching up with Ash and co. And he doesn't take it well either. However, Ash, Kid, and co. do make their way further into the tree, and they do find themselves in a cavern that does have an opening out to the surface, but it's all the way on the ceiling, and unfortunately, it's a long climb. So Lucario decides to try and look around to find a way to get up faster, only to immediately get ambushed by the Reggies, who immediately just hold him in place. And, well, that's kind of all she wrote, as immediately after that, the white blood cells immediately just zoom in and just grab Kid and Ash. And yeah, it's some pretty dark shit, as Kid and Ash release what's left of their Pokemon and basically just impart on them final goodbyes, because they're fully believing that this is it. They're going to die. And it's kind of heartbreaking, especially when Pikachu tries grabbing at Ash's hand and tries pulling him out, and it does nothing. It's sad. It's dark. And basically all of the Pokemon just look at where their former masters were, and all of them begin crying. And I don't mean like just that Ash and Kid's Pokemon. We even cut back to where May, Brock, and Max were consumed, and their Pokemon are looking just as heartbroken. And going back to Pikachu, Mew has kind of been hanging around with Pikachu this whole time, and the only thing of Ash's that got left behind was his hat. And while Mew does try offering the Ash's hat to Pikachu as like a condolence, well, Pikachu would much rather have his friend be in one piece, and so yeah, Mew realizes that just letting Pikachu and co.'s friends die is not exactly the right thing to do. And so, to try and make Pikachu happy, Mew does something. He begins radiating with that same green light we saw in the prologue for the movie, and he ends up flying up to one of the larger crystals in the room, and he begins, I guess, attuning with it. And doing this causes a surge that spreads out throughout the entire Tree of Beginnings. Again, I'm sorry I keep mixing up the name Tree of Beginnings and Tree of Life. That's on me. But it seems to cause a reaction in the tree as we see all the white blood cells that attacked the group before come back. Only they're radiating the same green light as before, and they spit out all of Ash's friends. And yeah, they're all in one piece, and everyone, of course, is happy to see them again. Even Team Rocket comes back, at one point they end up calling for help, and Meowth hears them and runs to their location. So again, it's actually a really nice scene. It's just really sweet and heartfelt, and does kind of get me right in the feels. And as such, after Kid puts her Weevilles back in their Pokeballs, she's able to put two and two together and realizes why Mew lives in the Tree of Beginnings. Basically, Mew and the tree have a symbiotic relationship. Their distinct biological systems are linked. One's life force is directly connected to the others, and as such, what happens to the tree affects Mew, and vice versa. So as a result, that's why Mew tends to live here, and that's why he does what he does. And as such, Kid actually feels happy for kind of having finally solved that mystery. But then something happens. You see, the crystals that we saw in this cavern suddenly flash orange for a second. And thus, while Ash is happy to see all his Pokemon again, and even thanks Mew for helping them, when he tries to get his hat back from Mew, Mew collapses. And when Kid goes to pick up Mew, again, sorry about that, Kid realizes that Mew has a fever. Something's wrong with Mew. And unfortunately, that's not the only thing, as Banks ends up calling Kid through her headset and lets her know that the tree is not doing so well. And, well, we soon learn why. It turns out that whatever Mew did, it was a big thing, and unfortunately, it had a feedback on the tree. Basically, the defense response from the tree to the invading virus was such a great thing that when Mew had to basically communicate with the tree to undo it. Well, let me put it this way: it's like having your own body attacking a virus, and then you had to physically will your body to just undo all of that shit. That alone. Basically, it's telling your body to undo what's basically a natural process. And the end result of that is not going to be something that your body takes well, as the tree basically goes into shock and begins dying. And since Kid has just figured out that the Tree of Beginnings and Mew are connected, if the tree goes, so does Mew. And not just Mew. Going back to how there was an entire valley of Pokemon living beneath the tree, well, you see, the thing is, those crystals that we've seen scattered around the kingdom, they're connected to the tree. And as the tree dies, those crystals begin basically frying up. And they take whole structures of Earth with them. Cliffs, mountainsides, entire rock ceilings. Everything is falling apart, and a bunch of Pokemon are caught in the middle. Hell, going back to the kingdom, we see that many of the crystals are there as well, and it begins spread. And basically, the miasma that these crystals are spreading from them getting ready to fall apart is spreading out, and it's clear that if it's allowed to continue, even Cameron Castle is not going to survive this. So yeah, things are kind of going to hell very fast. However, Mew, despite his sickened state, does have a solution, as he leads Ash, Kid, and Lucario into another room, and this room is supposed to hold the literal heart of the Tree of Beginnings, as we see what looks like a large crystalline structure in the center of everything that seems to be flowing with that same energy that we saw flowing in the tree's veins earlier. And as the group enters, they notice something, as kind of hanging off of one of the crystals in the area are Sir Aaron's gloves. And when the group goes in to further investigate, they see what looks like the outline of Sir Aaron in one of the crystals. And when Lucario uses his aura sensing ability on it, he senses Sir Aaron's aura, meaning that Sir Aaron was here. But why? Well, they once more get an answer, as guess what? There's a time flower nearby, and Ash accidentally activates a thing, which in turn causes a reaction that allows the group to get another vision of the past. In this case, we see that when Sir Aaron abandoned the kingdom, he did truly come to the Tree of Beginnings, and he wound up meeting up with Mew, as he fully understood Mew's connection to the tree, and he basically implored Mew to end the fighting, and he did it the only way he knew how. He basically just pooled all of his aura into Mew so that Mew could disperse it into the tree, and in turn the tree would disperse that energy all across the kingdom, since, like I said, all of the crystals from the Tree of Beginnings are scattered throughout the kingdom, and thus all that energy would spread to the armies, which in turn is what calmed them down before. Meaning that, yeah, the legends were true in that regard. Sir Aaron did save the kingdom. Although it clearly came at a heavy cost, because again, his aura is right now being housed inside a crystal. So yeah, Sir Aaron kind of did go out a hero. Although this does thankfully rebuild the pedestal that Lucario had for Sir Aaron, as he immediately just goes to this crystal and begs for forgiveness and for even downing him in the first place. Although this knowledge doesn't really help the group in their current situation. Well, maybe not. Actually, maybe it does, because you see, as Lucario is forgiving his former master, Mew goes to Lucario and lets him know that there is a way to save the Tree of Beginnings. Because you see, if Mew could get another aura infusion like what Sir Aaron did, then it would give him enough power to restore the Tree of Beginnings to life, and thus heal both Mew and the tree. The only problem is that if Lucario does this, he would end up in the exact same state as Sir Aaron, incorporeal, trapped in a crystal. But Lucario is very much willing to make that sacrifice. After all, the other choice is basically letting everybody die, and Lucario's not going to let that happen. And as such, he attempts to funnel his aura into Mew, but he's not strong enough. He does not have the willpower. So Ash volunteers as he takes Sir Aaron's gloves and dons them himself. Because after all, Lucario said that Ash and Sir Aaron have the same aura, so Ash believes that he can use that to his advantage and possibly give Lucario the extra boost he needs. Of course, everybody objects to this, or Kid objects to this, because again, if this succeeds, he and Lucario would be in the exact same state as Sir Aaron. But again, Ash knows the alternative is that a bunch of people in Pokemon die, so he's not going to let that happen. And this movie actually does say die. They genuinely say the word die. So yeah, grim shit. Regardless, Ash does try focusing, and he does start succeeding as he does manage to cause a little aura ball to appear. And so he and Lucario basically pool their aura energies together and begin infusing them right into Mew. And the effect on both of them is immediate, as they both begin radiating with aura energy similar to how Sir Aaron did in the past. And it's clear that if they keep going, then they're going to end up in the same state. Something Lucario notices and basically says no to as he just shoves Ash out of the way, thus cutting him off from the feed and allowing Lucario to finish the transfusion himself. And it does work, as the transfusion does give Mew the necessary energy, which he takes directly to the life stream of the Tree of Beginnings, which in turn, well, basically restores everything back to normal. The tree is restored to life, all the crystals begin rebuilding, the miasma fades away, and thus, basically order is restored, everybody is saved, and everything is good. Well, save for Lucario. Unfortunately, it's true. Doing what he did is beginning to have an effect on Lucario as he basically just falls over, as his body begins spasming and reacting with aura electricity, as it's clear he's basically just falling apart at the seams. Of course, Ash and Kid ask Lucario if they can do anything to fix this, but Lucario says there's nothing he can do. It's going to happen. However, as Lucario fades away, he accidentally rubs against the Time Flower, and we once more get another vision of the past. And in the vision, we see Sir Aaron in the same state as Lucario as he begins fading away, as he collapses against the jewel, and as Lucario sees his friend fading away, well, Sir Aaron begins directly talking to Lucario. And I don't mean in the sense of, oh, he knows Lucario's there. It's more like in the sense of spiritually. And it's here where Sir Aaron reveals another secret. The reason why he trapped Lucario in his staff, it's because he knew that if he knew that Lucario knew that he was coming to this tree to do what he was going to do, that he would insist on following. And well, Sir Aaron didn't want that. And as such, he did try to dissuade Lucario from following by making him think that he was basically a deserter, saying, "Oh, I abandoned the kingdom," but well, Lucario wasn't going to take no for an answer. He wanted to know why his master would suddenly think like that. And so, he intentionally trapped him in the staff because he knew, yeah, Lucario would be trapped there for a while, but one day he would be free, and he would be able to see the new world in a better light. But more importantly, he would live. And that's all Sir Aaron wanted. And he did it all not just because Lucario was his student, but because he saw him as one of his closest friends. And Lucario hears those sentiments and he begins tearing up and even admits that he feels the same way. He sees Sir Aaron as one of his closest friends. And before Sir Aaron vanishes, he says one final farewell, as he says that he believes one day he and Lucario will see each other again. It's honestly a really sweet sentiment, and the vision ends as we see Sir Aaron fading away. And well, with Lucario finally having gotten the closure he wanted, he begins fading away as well. And while Ash does plead with him to try and stay, Lucario says that it's just natural. His time is here, and Sir Aaron is waiting for him. And thus, Lucario's form fades as well into the crystal, but rather than his aura joining Sir Aaron's, the crystal that they are part of suddenly turns into energy and flows directly into this large crystal that the flow of energy from the Tree of Beginnings is being funneled into. And from there, they're gone. They're just gone. So as such, from there, we kind of get our signature wrap-ups. As Banks thanks Kid for basically tells Kid that she solved the mystery of the Tree of Beginnings, so the press will eat this up. But Kid tells Banks that maybe this is a world record that they should keep under wraps, because if this got out into the public, this place would be swarmed with tourists, and she thinks it's maybe best for everybody if this place just stays a secret. And, while Banks is a little reluctant to do this, he does comply with Kid's wishes, and, well, they let the mystery wrap up silently. As such, Ash manages to meet back up with the rest of his friends, Meowth meets back up with Jesse and James, and unfortunately, Ash and Kid have to let everyone know that Lucario is gone. Although, even with this knowledge in mind, Ash still feels resolved that even if Lucario is gone, his aura is still with him. And from there, the film wraps up as we get our typical credit scenes, as we see Ash and Co. going back to the castle of Cameron, with the queen happily greeting Ash with a hug, and we see that Lucario's sacrifice wasn't completely in vain, as everyone looks to the mural that once held Sir Aaron, and we see that Lucario has suddenly been added, meaning that, yeah, he and Sir Aaron are together again. As such, Ash and Co. leave the castle. They bid farewell to Kid, who goes off to do her own adventures, as we see her go to Farina, as we see her meeting up with Butler and Diane, so that means she might be investigating Jirachi. That's swell. And in the meantime, we even cut to the afterlife, as we see that, yep, Sir Aaron and Lucario have met up again, and apparently Lucario shared with Sir Aaron chocolate. Yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. After Ash and Lucario had their big blow-up, Max offered Lucario some chocolate, and Lucario happily took it, though upon realizing he was showing genuine joy towards it, he just immediately tried putting on a more stoic face to try and make sure Max didn't see his soft side. It's sweet, but yeah, that was Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Dog was barking about stuff, and my dad was messing with her. But, yeah. Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. My thoughts on it? I'm just going to say right now, out of every Pokemon movie in that world that we've looked at and will be looking at, this is probably my favorite. Bar none. And that's not to say that the other Pokemon movies are going to all be bad. No. I will say right now that there are going to be other Pokemon movies we'll talk about later that are good. And of course, I've mentioned plenty before this film that I think are good as well. But out of every Pokemon movie that we have seen or will see for these vlogs, I think this one is the one that holds the most special place in my heart. And that isn't to say that the other ones don't. Like I said, Jirachi's still a guilty pleasure of mine, and I still will happily rewatch that film anytime I'm just in the mood for something sweet and cute. But this film, hands down... Sorry, Chindy walked in. This film, hands down, is just, I think, the best of the Pokemon films. And the reason for this, believe it or not, is that it's, in my opinion, one of the most nuanced Pokemon movies. And I mean that in the sense of it feels like, despite how outlandish the film kind of gets at points, it feels the most real and character-driven. Because when you really think about it, going back to my plot summary, who was the villain in this movie? There was none. There was no villain in this movie. Okay, you could maybe argue Kit sort of acted as the villain, as it was her actions that led to the events of this entire film happening at all, but she isn't a villain. In fact, she's everything. She does everything a villain shouldn't do. She helps the hero. She takes responsibility for her actions. She makes her motives bare and plain. She assists wherever she can. She shows humanity. She helps out wherever she can. And by the end of the movie, when she does get what she wants, she thinks more about the greater whole and the people who would suffer if her discovery was made bare, and decides, you know what? I'm not going to tell anyone about this. It's best to keep it a secret. And quite frankly, I like that. I genuinely like that, as it makes the whole story feel more real and the conflict that much more natural. As what happens in this film doesn't feel like it happens because someone wanted to make a grab at power and felt that they deserved grander things, or they were doing things that were or they just were doing stupid things because they could, or because they were suffering a loss of some kind and were taking it out on others. No. What happened in this film is just a matter of poor circumstance. Dumb luck. Everything that happened in this film happened because of just antics, things happening that they didn't mean to. Mew didn't plan to kidnap Pikachu and Meowth, but because of the circumstances, he wound up doing it anyway, and he didn't object to it because, well, Pikachu is like a friend. And again, you could even argue that maybe Mew acts as a secondary villain, but I wouldn't argue that he's a secondary villain because Mew is not actively causing anyone harm. He's more like an innocent child in this movie, not fully understanding the ramifications of his actions, but taking responsibility for them when he realizes with the people that are suffering because of it. And again, that makes for a much more nuanced tale because when he sees the Pokemon grieving for their masters, he's not like, well, you can be happy you're here. He's more like, oh, you cared about those people. All right, I'll bring him back. Not because he gets anything from it, but because he just wants to make his new friends happy. And I like that. It's sweet. It's good. And the whole movie kind of radiates with the same level of nuance. And nowhere is that more apparent than with the two main interests with the two bigger conflicts in this movie. I guess three major conflicts: Ash and Lucario, Lucario and Aaron, and Aaron and Lucario's character. All three of these things are intertwined together, and all of them combined make her a very in-depth and very realistic story that really delves into a tale of forgiveness, rage, betrayal, and budding friendship, and all of that. And I think it does it well. And to kind of get into it, let's go down the list, starting with Lucario's character. Lucario throughout this whole film feels like the most well-rounded character. Because the thing is, while Lucario does seem to act a bit cold towards people when we first meet him, we're shown that he's not uncaring. And despite what happened, because going back to the moment when the group wound up going down for lunch, at one point a Bonsley came in and tried to steal their food, and when they tried to stop Bonsley just took their food and tried to run, and Lucario stepped in, took the food back and said, "You shouldn't take what's not yours, eat this," and gave him a fruit, which Bonsley just gobbled up. And likewise, going back to the hot springs scene where Ash basically fell into the water, while Lucario didn't end up helping Ash, when Ash fell, he did immediately react because he was obviously concerned that something happened to Ash. And again, if Lucario was as distant as he made himself out to be, then he shouldn't be showing any concern at all. At best, maybe he would just look and see if Ash was hurt, and then basically go, whatever. But this one, he literally just leaped up and was like, okay, what's going on? And I like that. I do like that. It hints that there is a heart in Lucario's chest. It's just that he's doing his best to hide it. And the reason for this is Sir Aaron. And what the thing is, throughout this movie, one of the big mysteries that were shown is why Sir Aaron did what he did. While we're told through the legend that Sir Aaron basically went to the Tree of Beginnings and did something that stopped the war and saved the kingdom, we're never told directly what it was, and Lucario's direct eyewitness account basically paints Sir Aaron in the most negative light. He's not a brave hero who valiantly saved his kingdom. He looked like a coward who abandoned his queen and then trapped his student within his staff for hundreds of years. That's not a hero, that's a wimp. Someone who just basically went out to save their own hide in every sense of the word. And the thing is, through the like I said, at various points in the movie, Lucario has flashbacks to his time with Sir Aaron, and all of them are very pleasant memories. It's Lucario and Sir Aaron bonding over something. Sir Aaron happily welcoming Lucario into the castle so that Lucario can begin his training in Aura. Them taking a break together and just enjoying each other's company. Sir Aaron happily showing these new wonders to Lucario just because he can. Even Lucario and Sir Aaron giving each other their trust. All of these are clearly pleasant memories, and all of them hurt now. because the picture of Sir Aaron that we get from these memories is that he was someone that Lucario genuinely trusted and relied on, someone that he felt he could turn to when the going got rough, and who he genuinely put more trust in than just being a student with his master. It's clear that, and it's like I said, like Sir Aaron and Lucario said at the end of the movie, they were clearly friends. They had a very deep bond. So throughout the entire film, Lucario's cold attitude makes a lot of sense, because from his perspective, the one person that he trusted and cared about most of all basically stabbed him in the back and betrayed every ideal that he imbued and preached. So seeing what Sir Aaron did in contrast to who he was keeps rattling around Lucario, and you can tell it's troubling him. Not just the fact that he's been ripped out of time and away from everything and everyone he knew, but he basically just wants to know why. Why did he do this? Was this the real Sir Aaron? Is this the kind of person he is? Does he really give a shit about me? Did he give a shit about anyone? Did he care about the Queen? Did he care about me? And these questions are clearly troubling Lucario to the point where it's making him visibly upset. And it's one of the reasons, and it's the main reason why he keeps everyone at arm's length. When he hears how much Ash cares about Pikachu and will do anything for him, he scoffs at it because he and Sir Aaron had a similar friendship, and yet Sir Aaron abandoned him and trapped him in a staff. So he genuinely thinks that despite Ash stating that he loves and cares about Pikachu, when compared to him and Sir Aaron, he thinks, oh, you're just lying and just saying words. First chance you get, you'll probably throw that yellow rat to the wind, won't you? It's sad, and the anger, it's misplaced, but you can understand where it's coming from. And it's really good conflict, and it makes you feel genuinely sorry for Lucario. Because like I said, you do see hints at the kind soul he truly is. We see, like I said, there's the scene with Bonsly, where there's the scene where Max offered him a chocolate, and Lucario, despite his best efforts, did show a bit of genuine happiness when tasting the chocolate. And even that. And again, he did react when Ash fell into the hot spring. So there is clearly a heart in there, but he's doing his best to hide it, to bury it. And that alone makes him a much more compelling and interesting character, because you really feel how tortured he is, how much what he experienced with Sir Aaron hurt him. And likewise, this same conflict spreads to Ash, because the thing is, Ash is basically a proxy for Sir Aaron for Lucario, because through the flashbacks we see of Sir Aaron, we see that he and Ash were kind of cut from the same cloth, which seems kind of obvious since they share the same aura, but they are basically cut from the same cloth. They have similar enthusiasm, they show similar passion, they showcase similar values of friendship and camaraderie to each other, and which in turn causes Lucario to basically lash out at Ash, unfairly admittedly, but lash out, because he sees in Ash another Sir Aaron, and well, since the original article isn't around for him to bitch at, he basically takes his anger out on Ash, and again, it's unwarranted, but you understand where this anger is coming from, and as a result, it leads to a very actually natural friendship blooming between the two. Because in the beginning, Ash and Lucario do not see eye to eye. Lucario is very much just keeping Ash at a distance, and any talk of Ash basically brings up about him and Pikachu being best friends, Lucario just kind of scoffs at, because again, the aforementioned betrayal with Sir Aaron. And then likewise, when Ash tells this tale about how he and Pikachu truly became best friends, and Lucario remembers the times he and Sir Aaron truly bonded, again, he basically thinks that everything that Ash is saying is a lie, which in turn causes them both to clash. Because we know that Ash is genuine, but ultimately Lucario doesn't. He doesn't trust Ash, and he's afraid to trust Ash, which in turn causes him to treat Ash as nothing more than the enemy, which in turn does cause some genuine strife between the two, which does cause them to trade metaphorical fisticuffs at one point, which gotta give Ash credit. You gotta have a strong pair of balls on you if you're willing to take on a Pokemon that can literally shoot out aura spheres with its palms. And yet, at the same time, when the truth is revealed about what happened to Lucario, and we do see that what he was saying is the truth, it does lead to a much more, it does allow things to settle, because by this point Ash and Lucario have both come to realize that the other person is not lying about what they went through, and that the feelings they feel are genuine and valid. Ash apologizes to Lucario about what he said to him, and he finally understands why Lucario has been doing the things he's been doing. And likewise, when Lucario sees this genuine caring and love in Ash's eyes, this genuine remorse and the lengths he's willing to go to protect his friends, Lucario begins opening up to Ash too, because it finally gives them some middle ground, something that they can work towards, and it's what in turn causes Lucario to actually finally share a genuine emotion with Ash when he makes Ash promise to never abandon Pikachu. It's sweet, it's nice, and it's sweet, it's nice, and it makes the connection they have much more whole and realistic. And thus when we get to the third act, when Ash and Lucario are actively working together to try and find Pikachu, it feels nice. They feel more cohesive, and as a result, it really does make them feel like a true pair of friends, basically having forged their friendship in the depths of anger, and it's nice. I love it. But the thing is, what really brings it all together is the third act. When we get to the third act, not only do things feel tense when the Tree of Beginnings basically turns on Ash and Co. and begins to consuming them, which that alone is a big WTF moment, because for all intents and purposes, it does look like Ash and Co. were fucking eaten. What really brings it home is when Lucario learns the fate of Sir Aaron, and in turn, Ash, and Kid finally learn the truth, because through the Time Flower, they see that Sir Aaron never did abandon the kingdom, but instead truly gave his life for the kingdom, and that in turn not only restores Lucario's faith in his friend, but the final message Lucario sees before he fades away basically reaffirms the one thing that Lucario was most certain of before his betrayal: that he and Sir Aaron were truly best friends, and that while Sir Aaron regrets trapping Lucario in the staff, he believes it's better for him to be trapped in there, because he knows one day he'll be released and he'll be alive. He won't, and it's heartbreaking to see this moment where Sir Aaron is both pleading for forgiveness and also hoping for a better future, hoping that his sacrifice will not only allow the kingdom that he's sworn to protect a brighter future, but whatever future they wake up in, but whatever future that he's made will be one that Lucario will be happy in. And it's heartbreaking. And seeing Lucario's reaction to Sir Aaron's final moments is just, it tears at your heartstrings. And just seeing Lucario just begging and pleading with Sir Aaron, and telling him, "I understand. I know why you did this. It's okay. It's fine. I understand." It's just heart-wrenching. I will not deny, this film almost made me tear up twice. The first time was when Ash gave his apology to Lucario, because that feels like a genuinely truly strong, because it felt like a genuinely strong emotional moment as we saw Lucario dealing with the PTSD of being caught in the battle, combined with having to directly relive Sir Aaron's betrayal. And the second time when we learn the truth about Sir Aaron, and Lucario basically beats him, and Lucario basically just lets out tears of joy, knowing that the person he truly cared and trusted the most didn't actually betray his trust, and did the thing he did not because he wanted to stop Lucario from stopping him, but because he didn't want Lucario to be caught in the crossfire of all this and to sacrifice himself as well. It's heartbreaking, and yet so sweet. It feels genuinely heartfelt, and it makes Lucario's sacrifice hit that much harder, knowing that he's making the same sacrifice Sir Aaron did, and for the same reasons, for the benefit of his friends. Thanks to opening up to Ash, he's allowed himself to grow closer and begin showcasing his nicer side again, and not only have that side be strengthened when he learned that his faith in Sir Aaron was justified, and that Sir Aaron genuinely did save the kingdom and did what he did to keep Lucario out of harm's way. It's nice. It's heartfelt. and it basically rips at the heartstrings and makes the ending, despite how nice it is to see everyone back together again, feel bittersweet. But it's bittersweet in the best way possible. It's an emotional state that really sticks with you, really makes you feel the full brunt of what's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that. I love how it all comes together. And quite frankly, all these factors combined make Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, I think, just a damn good movie. I can say this right now. You do not have to be a Pokemon fan in order to appreciate this movie. Even if you don't know a thing about Pokemon, you can fully understand what's going on with the characters because the film does a really good job at showcasing their growth. Even if you have no idea what the hell a Lucario is, you can immediately sympathize with Lucario's emotional state based on what you see and how he feels. Everything he's shown is really human reactions. Yeah, he's a Pokemon, but his reactions are genuinely human. His outbursts feel normal, natural. They feel everything that he goes through is something that actually feels fully realized. This actually feels like something that a person would be going through if put in a similar situation. To be betrayed by someone they cared about. To be put in a situation where everything this person was seems to have just been torn down in an instant. You are going to be left wondering. You're going to be left angry. You're going to be left betrayed, and you're just going to keep asking the same question over and over. Why did you do this? Why did you go through all this? Why did you betray me? Why did you betray everybody else? I want to know, and you're not telling me. And the combined aspects of that lack of closure and the fresh betrayal would hit like a truck. And Lucario embodies them perfectly. Hell, one of the best moments, in my opinion, was when he woke up from the stab and saw the castle of Cameron in the present day, and we saw him just kind of adjusting to the fact that he'd been asleep for hundreds of years. And when it all finally comes together, again, his near panic attack feels very natural. How would you react to learning that you went to sleep one day and then woke up hundreds of years later with everything you knew and loved possibly being erased and now lost to time? That would hurt like hell. Thank you very much. And Lucario embodies it all perfectly. And again, that's what really holds the movie together. The genuine human nature of everything. Every character feels fully realized. The reaction was, the conflict of Lucario feels natural. His and Sir Aaron's frayed friendship feels like a natural one, and seeing it get slowly but surely repaired as the film goes along really helps establish more of why Lucario feels the way he does, but also makes the affirmation of those positive emotions he held towards Sir Aaron feel a lot much stronger. The Ash and Lucario's friendship feels very natural, and I love the connections that we have with them. I like that we see this get more in depth about Ash and Pikachu's friendship as well, as Lucario sees in them the same friendship he and Sir Aaron had, and while this again is the source of the initial conflict between Lucario and Ash, by the end, Lucario sees in Ash the person that he saw in Sir Aaron, and thus he does truly believe in Ash and Pikachu's friendship, and so when they get reunited by the end, he's happy to have played a part in it, and he in turn begins trusting Ash just as much as he trusted Sir Aaron, as he's willing to stand by Ash and help him find his best friend regardless of the circumstances. And again, I love that friendship comes full circle, as Ash and Lucario are the ones that attempt to bring Mew back to life, and the only reason Ash doesn't bite the big one is because Lucario pushed him out of the way and took the full brunt of the aura infusion. Again, it's nice. It's really it hits all the right emotional spots, and I think that's the real glue that holds the movie together throughout, because really when it comes down to it, this film is the reason why this film is my favorite Pokemon movie out of every Pokemon film is because it feels the most real. Yes, the circumstances are outlandish. They go to a fucking tree that's technically got its own nervous system and antibodies, for crying out loud. But everything in here feels well, human. Lucario's reaction, the conflict, and the natural butting of the heads that occurs because of this conflict, the friendship that Ash and Lucario formed, the conflict that Lucario coming to terms with his past, growing his own friendship with Ash, and his ultimate sacrifice in the end. It all hits just the right emotional beats, and altogether, it makes this film my favorite Pokemon film, bar none. There's no villain in this film, but it doesn't need one. Everything within it is nuanced and hits just the right emotional beats to keep you invested in what our main characters are going through, which in turn makes the ultimate finale for these characters hit that much harder and stick with you that much longer. It's a great emotional journey, and I just can't get enough of it. There is a reason why I loved this movie when I was a kid, and it is the same reason I still love it as an adult. It is a very nuanced, very emotional movie that knows exactly what points to hit and where in order to make its characters feel natural and allows their conflicts to come together in the best way possible that all wrap up into just a damn good time. Now, if you have not seen this film, I more than recommend it. Even if you're not a Pokemon fan, I think the emotional beats of this film produces are enough that you can fully get invested in the tale and genuinely feel a connection with the characters on screen. Hands down, I think it's just the best Pokemon movie, with Spell of the Unknown coming in second place. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say in that regard. Just a damn good movie. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching, and tune in next week where we will not be having Mew on standby. Sorry. But we will be seeing we won't be seeing any more of the 4Kids cast, as like I said last week, this film was their swan song for the movies. But from now on, we'll be seeing the world of Pokemon be put in the reins of Funimation as we see their first attempt at dubbing an anime movie with Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea.